Jumbo, fellow adventurers, happy Monday. Mike Dooley, time for a spiritual tune-up where I answer your questions Monday through Friday, 9:15 Eastern Time, to help put some traction beneath your feet when it comes to understanding metaphysics, the underlying philosophy and science upon which all physical sciences reside. All right, today's question is kind of a carryover from the topic of last week, where we were talking about, is an illness ever just an illness? Does everything arise from our thoughts based on our understandings and our misunderstandings? And therefore, when the things arise that are unpleasant, is that a function of being out of alignment with truth? And the answer was 99.99% of the time, yes. It's always because we're out of alignment with truth when we encounter the difficult and the unpleasant. But I also said don't overread into it. Well, then this amazing question came. I've danced around it in earlier tune-ups. Mike, what about babies and birth defects? Yo, this is a great question. I totally believe that there's no question that shouldn't be asked. That every unanswered question is a portal through which your power ebbs away from you. Ask the big questions, ask the hard questions. It is astounding what you can attract in terms of insight and knowledge. Much of what I share was inspired by things I've read in my life. I give attribution when that's relevant. But more than that, I'm able to confirm what I read through my own deductive reasoning and going within. And anybody can do this. I highly urge you to do this. So what I'm about to share is significantly my own deductions, observations, being aligned with truth to the best of my ability, knowing that we're eternal beings, but some confirmation as well that I'll clue you in on in just a moment. To answer the question about a child or a baby with birth defects, I mean, nothing is going to put a smiley face on that. But we didn't come here just for smiley faces. We came from a place of unending smiley faces, and we saw down here the lions and tigers and bears and the possibility for adventure and discovery. And we said, sign me up. And if I scrape my shin or if I slip and fall down, it's all going to be for my greater growth and glory. And so it's from that perspective that we have to choose how we see time and space to be able to come up with any kind of clarity on, like, why would a child have cancer? Or in this questioner asked about scoliosis or other birth defects that just seem to have no redeeming qualities. We have to realize we are of God, by God, pure God, that we rest in eternity, and we rested in eternity forever prior to this lifetime. And when we're done, we go back forever, where there's nothing but smiley faces. But it is from that perspective that we realize a lifetime is just a lifetime, which is not an intention to detract from the magnificence, the power, and the beauty and the majesty of every lifetime. But it is just a lifetime. And don't think, wow, somebody who's born with a defect could never know so many things that someone who wasn't born with a defect knows. In the scheme of things, we all know everything. We've all come back, men, male, female, perfect bodies, broken bodies. Why? For what the gifts would impart. But first off, we have to realize a lifetime is in a sense just a lifetime, because we get to do so much more in other experiences, other realms, other probabilities, parallel universes, on and on and on. So it's like a lifetime is a blink to the soul, others have said, just a blink in eternity. And so you can imagine that you wouldn't want every single blink, if you were to adventure into the jungles of time and space, for you to be born in Beverly Hills 90210 with a silver spoon in your mouth. You'd be like, I want to know how other people live. I don't want to have this nonstop guidance from people who adore me. I want to put my own legs under myself, and I want to pull myself up by my bootstraps, and I want to discover my power in the shortest, quickest way possible, and not have other people so pandering and fawning all over me. Just a hypothetical. To answer one of the deepest questions about this, given the topic last week, that almost all unpleasantries arise from spiritual misunderstandings, not being aligned with truth. That is not the case with babies or children who had no time to be confused in this incarnation. Between lifetimes, there's always guides and love and infinite possibilities, and each of us chooses meticulously. We craft it meticulously what our next adventure will be based on the lessons we want to learn, the fun we want to have, the friends we want to make, the people we want to reconnect with. And so a lifetime that begins with a birth defect is in no way, shape, or form born of misunderstandings, nor is it a punishment. Never would it be part of karma, unless the individual, through guidance and their own wisdom and the love in their heart, said, I want to try that out because I have no idea what it's like to experience that. Now, we don't have to all experience a birth defect or blindness, or every life is different. Every example of scoliosis would stem from different choices, different rationale, different ambitions driving the person who would have chosen those things. I also want to kind of make clear that when there is such a thing as a birth defect, that obviously will affect a great number of people besides the baby born with it. The parents, significantly, siblings, community, the world at large. Every single person affected by an individual who arrives with a birth defect was part of the co-creation of it and wanted to be part of the experience, whether the baby itself, let me play that role, or the father, or the mother, or the sibling, or the community. Let me be aware of this child. Let this manifestation trigger things in me that would never have been triggered otherwise. It is like a sacred agreement. Every birth is, including those where there are birth defects. And everyone affected said, yes, I want to be part of the magic and miracles of this lifetime. Nobody would be a martyr. Nobody would say, well, I don't really want to do that, but for your sake, I will. Not at a spiritual level where lifetimes are chosen. Nobody needs martyrs. Nobody needs, we could come up with a long list of tangents as to why somebody might do it other than joy. It's all done for joy. And while you can point to exceptions where it just seems to be a miserable case and a miserable condition, and maybe they died 6 days after they were born or after 6 painful years of living, there would always be love and order, perfection and healing. Maybe not physical healing of that body, but healing of the psyche, healing of the energy of all involved. There is only love. There is only beauty. There is only order. There is only perfection. And it means nothing that we might not be able to see that or understand that from within these jungles of time and space. Everything would be about love, and everyone would want to be part of this sacred pact where everyone would have a chance to learn and experience things that were not otherwise possible. The question for everyone curious about a situation in their lifetime, whether they are afflicted with a birth defect or not, is, what does this make possible? What does this make possible? Everyone, if you're the father, if you're the daughter, if you're if you're the siblings, if you're the community, and this ought to be asked for every single thing in our lives that taunts us, that puzzles us, that breaks our heart, that thrills us, that excites us, that fills us with joy. What does this make possible? And if the answer is just joy right away, I mean, you might not ask that question at every turn in your life, but certainly for the challenging situations, what does this make possible? And very often, you will know immediately what it makes possible. Sometimes it's quite likely that you will not know what it's making possible, but that doesn't mean it's not making it possible and that your life isn't benefiting by this, and one day that'll make perfect sense. And in the worst case, there may be total confusion on your part why something has happened in your life or the life of a loved one, but you can still always discern and realize that this thing playing out in the heart of God is for greater reasons than you can now fathom, that you will one day fathom. So that you can't fathom it now, at least realize all is supremely well. It'll make sense. You're growing. Everyone's growing. There's love and order. And we still have forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And at that point, we'll still have eternity. So put it in perspective. That's not going to put a smiley face on it. To give some quick examples of what does this make possible, very clearly, we know stories of the blind person who, because of their blindness, has been able to enhance or relish and enjoy other faculties, perhaps like hearing or inner senses that would not have been enhanced had it not been for the blindness. So accentuating other faculties, talents, and gifts would always be part of the equation, not just for the person with the birth defect, but for the witnesses, the parents, the community, who will undoubtedly know compassion and patience, sympathy, empathy, as well as perhaps some unexpected things. Maybe they're going to be more creative. Maybe they will have other faculties that are accentuated because they're in a care provider situation. The list of possibilities is endless. And again, whether or not you can pin the tail on the donkey doesn't mean enormous objectives aren't being met. They always are. It's all playing out in the heart of God. A little side note. I am often referencing the Seth material by Jane Roberts. I highly recommend it. It has helped solidify and clarify some of my own abstract ideas and conclusions, and gone way beyond what I could have done on my own, I feel, in this lifetime. But Seth says, when speaking to choosing lifetimes and the many, many thousands, tens of thousands of lifetimes that most of us live, you know, I'm putting words to something that really isn't as objective as we tend to think it is, reincarnation, but we do the best we can. And Seth said, contrary to your expectations, it's not as if everyone would want to choose to be really hot and good looking and really popular and really loved and with a lot of, parents with a lot of money, as I alluded to earlier in this tune-up. To the contrary, most would not choose to be always good looking and always wealthy, or even frequently, or even the majority of the time. Can you imagine that? From that perspective, it would make sense. And Seth went on to say, one of the reasons is we learn a lot more about things we want to learn about. You don't have to learn anything, and tests are not given. We learn a lot more about life, reality, ourselves, when people aren't kind of bouncing off the walls trying to take advantage of us because of our good looks. And typically, not always, typically a very good looking person will have an easier life with less challenges and learn less. This is certainly not always the case. And people who don't have that kind of a perk, good looking and whatever, will have to rely on and go dig deep inside of themselves to compensate, learn more, find their power, discover creativity, rock the world. I mean, there's a zillion gradations and shades to all of this. This does not mean that every good looking person has an easy life. This does not mean that every ugly person has learned the most. Anybody can do anything in any life. But that just gives you an idea that with a little thought, you can see, look, I just had 9,200 lifetimes where I was just drop dead gorgeous. I wonder what it would be like if I wasn't drop dead gorgeous. I would develop in ways otherwise impossible. Let's give it a shot. Boo, there's going to be love everywhere. Why not? Last point I want to make. Because somebody has a birth defect or somebody in their life breaks their leg or stubs their toe, of course, while there's order, purpose, and meaning behind it, this never is to imply don't do anything about it. You know, if somebody is born with a birth defect and maybe some surgery or medication or whatever can help eradicate it, cure it, correct it, then perhaps that journey into options, healing, hospitals, doctors, etc., perhaps that was part of the order initially anticipated, and therefore is what part of the motivation the birth defect was to impart. A journey into, correction. That's not a very good word. Into healing. So just because you're born with something doesn't mean you have to put up with it. In many cases. In some cases, obviously, you're not going to grow a new arm, according to Seth and other folks. So anyway, tough question. Thanks for indulging me and letting me take a stab at it. Have an amazing Monday. By the way, there's 4 more days left before I kick off my 21-day hustle and journey into discovering and monetizing your side hustle. I hope you'll join me. Check out the link below under this video on Facebook. Swipe up in Instagram to check out the 21-day adventure into your side hustle. It's going to be a lot of fun. My background as a certified public accountant and a teacher of metaphysics, I think, is going to help set me up to help set you up for a really amazing adventure. All right. Hasta pronto. Have a good one. Winnie and Linda and Sheila. Everybody post your questions below on this topic, similar or totally different. And Hannah, glad you're here. Narelle, glad you're on Instagram. Thanks for being there. Reba. Okay, adios. See you tomorrow.